I told Connie about the affair, and of course, she was extremely hurtful. Quite naturally, I had cheated on her and I betrayed her. She ran into the bedroom and locked the door, and we continued to argue through the closed door. About 20 minutes or so later, she came down the hallway, and to my surprise, she had my pistol in her hand. This was completely out of nature and character for Connie. But what surprised me was she was heading to the back door. She said she was going to confront Donna, the woman I had been having an affair with. I went after her. I wanted her anger to be focused on me, and I couldn't let her leave like that. Tried to calm her down. And at one point, I tried to prevent her from going into the car. I tried to take the pistol away from her. We struggled. The gun was between us. And I'm really not sure how, but the gun went off, hitting Connie in the chest. Before I could realize what was going on and react, she fell back, hitting her head on a concrete planter. There was no pulse. I just sat there holding her. And instead of telling the truth that night, I buried her on the side of my house. I told everyone that she had ran off with another man. One lie continued after another. And before I knew it, I was down a dark road. I couldn't even feel anything. I was numb. And I guess I could tell you that I did this to try to protect my children. But in all actuality, I was a coward. I was ashamed, and I was scared out of my mind. Later, I bought the greenhouse over the situation where she was buried. And in 1991, I sold the house and bought another home. Later that year, the house was sold again, and new owners put in a sewer system. And Connie's remains were discovered.
For the record, I want to mention that Mr. Godet submitted a statement with his application. That account is almost exactly what he submitted. In reading the official police report, it is accurate account that he just gave and at the time of his arrest in 1991. So thank you for your honesty, Mr. Godet. Let's talk about your educational endeavors. I understand that you were instrumental in starting the first library at the State Police Barracks in 2011. There was no place where the offender population could get materials to read. And today, that library has 5,500 books and 1,000 ebooks. Tell me how you went about starting a library at the State Police Barracks.
When I got to the State Police Barracks in 2007, there was no reading library. And the extent of books that we had was a shelf in the back by the laundry with maybe a couple of hundred tattered books on it. So I went to the commander and I asked him if we could start a library. And he said that if he could come up with the funds to pay for the building, if I would be willing to volunteer and be the librarian after work hours. And I told him I would. The building was ordered, and over the next year, we put in the electrical and air conditioning and flooring, built some 24 bookshelves, and I started writing letters to State Library and people that I knew that had access to books. And one after another, books started to accumulate. We started to purchase books. And now the offender population has a place where they can go to read and write letters or just find a quiet place away from their everyday life. And something that I'm proud of doing over here. And I do so with gusto because I believe that if you can do something positive with your time, then maybe something good can come out of what you're doing the time for.
In 2017, the First Lady, Donna Edwards, started a program at the Baton Rouge Community Center that enabled offenders at the state police barracks to attend classes and get into programs at the community college in Baton Rouge. And you were one of the first offenders to take advantage of this and understand that it is a family tradition, carpentry. You have a line of carpenters in your family, and you took some carpentry courses. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. I took carpentry levels 1 and 2 and was received my certification from Twix. I came from a family of 3 generations of carpenters, and I was the one person who broke tradition. And at this time, I just felt like this was a perfect opportunity for me to honor my father and grandfather and brother's legacy. I went through the program and enjoyed it and thought it was something very beneficial for use.
Tell us about the Catholic Faith Study Program in Zachary, Louisiana. I think Church of St. John Catholic Church. This is a program that you started, or a program that you worked in. Tell us about that program.
The extent of our Catholic programs when I got here was 1 communion service a month. And through working with various clergy in the Baton Rouge area and deacons, we were able to provide a weekly communion service or mass for the inmate population. Ms. Donna Edwards had asked about starting an RCIA program for potential offenders who possibly wanted to convert to Catholicism. And through Father Jeff Bahi and Deacon Tommy Benoit, we started a program that would allow that to happen. The 2 individuals that were going through it, however, managed to get computations and went home. But we continue to do Catholic study each Tuesday evening, along with services, and provide whatever means we can to the offender population.
Thank you, sir. This is a commutation of sentence case, and 99% of these cases, there is opposition, and you have very strong opposition to your request for clemency. The first opposition comes from the 17th JDC Judge LeBlanc, who is opposed to you receiving a commuted sentence. The sitting judge, when you were sentenced, Judge Sidney Artwan, is not on the bench any longer and didn't make a comment. The district attorney's office is strongly opposed. We have a comment from first district attorney, assistant district attorney Jennifer Richard, who is opposed to you receiving a community sentence. The sheriff's office in LaPush Parish is also strongly opposed. You have opposition from your former wife's family. We have opposition from the victim's mother, Ms. Ethel Hickory. We have opposition from the victim's sister, Ms. Karen Landry of Matthews, Louisiana. We have opposition from Ms. Gwen Potier, sister of the victim from Addis, Louisiana. And also opposition from Ms. Cindy LeJourne, who is a sister of the victim and he lived in Rachel, Louisiana. So there is very strong opposition to your request for clemency. Let's continue, and we're going to talk about your arrest record. From my research, I find that this is the only arrest on your record. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has not been arrested for any other criminal crime since the age of 18.
No, sir.
You've been housed at the State Police Barracks since May 29, 2007. But let me go back a little further. You arrived at Louisiana State Penitentiary on September 20th, 1993. And with reading your file, Mr. Godet, it seems to me that you entered Louisiana State Penitentiary with a mindset to correct your way. You arrived in 93, and in 1993, 94, you completed a series of classes in the preset ministry program, and you completed all the classes in 93, 94. You completed CPR training in 1994, and you completed another a series of Bible studies called Source of Light Bible Studies in December of 1994. You joined Toastmasters in January 1995, advanced course in CPR in 1996. Why did you take the advanced course in CPR?
At the time, they were considering starting a hospice program, and they were allowing volunteers. And even though I wasn't a volunteer, there were a couple of the volunteers that were offering CPR courses. I thought it was important for me to understand that and to know that, because of me, a life was lost. But maybe sometime in the future, because of me, a life could be saved if I knew CPR and CPR training.
You completed anger management in 2006. So the first 3 years of incarceration, you concentrated on programming, getting back to religious values. So what I mentioned your mindset. Tell me exactly what your mindset was as you entered Louisiana State Penitentiary in 1993.
I remember my first steps into Angola in 93. I read a sign that was posted outside the prison that said, "Can anything good come out of Angola?" And when I took that first step into the prison, I told myself that I needed to involve myself with positive programs, with something that would be productive. About 3 months after I was there, I attended a program and spoke to Judge Robert Downing. And he told me about Toastmasters and how he felt that Toastmasters would be a beneficial program for prisoners at Angola. About a year later, myself and 19 other guys chartered the first Toastmaster club at Angola. It was 23 years that I was a Toastmaster. And throughout those 23 years, I continued to try to work those programs in communication and leadership. On weekends, I volunteered my time to teach classes like effective listening, developing your leadership skills and speechcraft to the offender population. I was proud to say that I was one of the first of 2 inmates in the country to receive the Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And throughout those 23 years, served the club and charter as president, vice president of education, public relations, treasurer, and secretary. But at the same token, my religious faith was important to me. And I spent that time with numerous Bible studies. I was one of the first 12 inmates commissioned a Eucharistic peer minister by Bishop Robert Munch after taking a three-year course in Catholic ministry and theology sponsored by the Baton Rouge Diocese. I wanted to take advantage of whatever I could do to benefit myself. I needed to try to set the right example for my daughters, to show them that even when you're facing impossible odds sometimes, you can try to do something to help yourself, to better yourself.
Mr. Godet, Toastmasters is another section of my presentation, but since you mentioned it, I'll go to that right now. You are the first Toastmaster, you were the first offender Toastmaster that was designated as an able Toastmaster, I think in 1994. Tell us what an able Toastmaster is.
The Toastmaster program is a tier program to where you have to work several speeches, do programs, community service, and sort to be able to reach that level. At that time, it was giving 15 speeches to an audience, to hold an office within the club, and to be able to teach classes to the offender population. I worked those programs, I worked diligently on those programs, and was able to become the first able Toastmaster.
Mistaken, you actually did 18 speeches in front of audience.
Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The minimum requirement was to do 15 speeches, but I understand that you did 18.
Yes, sir.
And the next thing I want to mention is that you were the first offender to gain silver and gold status in Toastmasters. Tell us what that signifies.
Those statuses came after able Toastmaster with the same requirements, 15 to 18 speeches to be given, to hold an office, to mentor other people who wanted to come into Toastmasters, also to act as a club coach for perhaps a struggling charter or for your own charter, and to just spend time trying to help others to reach the goals that you have reached.
And I want to mention that I can't mention all, but Mr. Godet has taken every program, communication, speaking program that Toastmaster has to offer. And I think at one time, he was appointed governor of Area 16 of Toastmasters. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who appointed you?
I was appointed by the District 68 governor of Toastmasters, Ms. Carolyn Nix.
So basically, you were a Toastmaster for 23 years.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why you discontinued your membership?
Yes, sir. I got out of Toastmasters in 2016 because they were beginning to start the courses here at the barracks with the Baton Rouge Community College. I knew that in order for me to be able to give my time and effort into these carpentry classes, that I had to focus on that one program. And to be honest with you, I had gone as far as I could go through Toastmasters, and it was time to start taking what I had learned and applying it to other areas of my life.
Mr. Godet has a low risk assessment. He has a good institutional record, and I will give you some idea of the comments of what the staff at the police barracks said on his annual institution progress report. He is currently 64 years old. He's in minimum custody. As I said, he has a low risk assessment score, high school diploma, and a college degree. We talked about his training at the Baton Rouge Community College. He was a member, facilitator, and officer of Toastmasters. And basically, comments made by staff, his work supervisor said, Mr. Offender Gode has worked for mobility and communication services, formulate police supplies for the last 15 years. He is respectful, reliable, and works well without instruction. Security supervisor says he maintained an excellent disciplinary record, an excellent work record. He interacts well with officers, staff, and offenders. He represents himself in a professional and courteous manner. He is an asset to our facility. The classification officer says he shows no tendencies towards violence and conducts himself in an appropriate manner and represents himself as a mature and respectful offender. Mr. Gode, you've been incarcerated a little bit over 30 years. Is that correct?
29 and a half years, sir.
29?
29 and a half years.
So you were arrested in what, March of 92?
Yes, sir.
Were you out on bond at any time?
Yes, sir. About a year.
Okay, you were out on bond about a year. So it's about 29 and a half years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In 29 and a half years, I'm looking at your disciplinary report and it's blank. Does this mean that you've had no disciplinary write-ups in 29 years of incarceration?
I've had no disciplinary write-ups at all.
So tell me, Mr. Gode, how does an offender in the mid-90s who's housed at Angola for 14 or 15 years have no write-ups?
By keeping to myself, by associating with people with the same mindset that I had, be productive, and to want to do better with your life, by spending time helping others that wanted help. But like anywhere else, if you go in a bad neighborhood, you're going to find trouble. I surrounded myself with people who I felt had the same mindset as I did.
Thank you, Mr. Gode. Mr. Gode, you were transported to the police barracks in May of 2007, and I think you started a job at police supply immediately, and that department is now known as mobility communication services. You worked that job for the past 15 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I have a letter from your supervisor, Mr. Vernon McFadden, who says that you're an asset to the company. You work as a trustee clerk, and you are courteous and a professional in all of your dealings with that department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've worked one job for 15 years.
Yes, sir.
And that's unique in itself because most offenders have multiple jobs over a period of 10 or 15 years. Let's talk about programs, Mr. Gode. Tell me about, first of all, the good time programs that you've completed.
I have taken the Cage Your Rage program, the Victims Awareness program, and the 100-hour pre-release preparation program. And I'm not sure if they offered good time for the Baton Rouge Community College or not.
No, I want to state this for the record. There is a document in DOC that says Mr. Godet has never had an alcohol or drug problem, so he was not required to take a series of basic courses such as living in balance, celebrate recovery, and other substance abuse courses because basically it was certified by the DOC that he has never had an alcohol or drug problem. Have you ever had any problems with alcohol or drug abuse?
I've never used drugs, and the extent of my alcohol consumption would be probably a couple of beers at a backyard barbecue or maybe a couple of drinks at a holiday party.
Basically, that is the reason why we don't see any substance abuse
Yes.
program on your. So tell us about the faith-based program that you completed over a period of 29 years.
I have taken Source of Life Bible studies and also Little Rock Bible studies through the Catholic ministry at Angola. And I also, they brought a 3-year ministry and theology program to Angola. And I was one of the first of 12 to take the 3-year course and was commissioned a Eucharistic peer minister through the chaplain's department at Angola. And through that position was able to assist chaplains in cell block ministry, communion services, counseling, setting up services and so forth. And I continued to carry that program over to the state police barracks where I coordinate Catholic services over here.
I want to just mention a few letters that we received. It would be impossible to mention each and every letter, but we have letters of support from family, friends, and associates. Just to mention a few, we have a letter from Norman Godet, your brother, his wife, Carolyn Godet. We have a letter from your daughter, Melissa Godet, and we'll go over that letter a little bit later. We have a letter from Sister Lucy Silvio, a retired religious and former principal of St. Joseph Academy. We have a letter from Deacon Angelo Nolan. We call him Deacon Zeke. He's a chaplain at Louisiana State Penitentiary and Mount Carmel Baptist Church in St. Francisville. We have a letter from Reverend Jack Nenery, a retired pastor, Diocese of Baton Rouge. This is Linda Falco from Catholic Charities. We have a 2015 letter from Pastor Jim Rims and a letter from Bishop Robert Munch, who is a retired bishop of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. Reverend Drew LaFog. It goes on and on. Reverend Matt Lorraine of St. John's Baptist in Brunel. Just to mention a few, I didn't count, but I would say we have letters of support in excess of 75 to 100 letters in support of your clemency. Is there anything that I did not cover, Mr. Godet, that you would like to mention at this time?
I'd just like to say that I know that it's taken me a long time to come forward and speak what had actually happened. I was at Angola for about a year when I finally faced my fears and wanted to tell the truth of what actually happened. I sought legal counsel at Angola at the time and was basically told that I could not contact Connie's family, that my best means of avenue would be to wait until I could be eligible to apply for a clemency. And then I could say what I wanted to say then. In 2008, when I reached the 15-year eligibility mark, I filed an application and gave a brief summary of what had happened. And of course was denied due to the nature of the offense and insufficient time served. In 2015, I was granted a hearing, but at the same time, I saw the stress and the emotional tug of war that it put on my children, and rightfully so, because of their relationship with me and their relationship with their grandparents and their mother's family. And it played a key role in why I withdrew from my hearing in 2015, because I just didn't want to cause any more pain and suffering and heartache to all of these people. And I just want to say that I'm truly sorry. And there's not a day that goes by that Connie is not in my thoughts and in my prayers. Thank you.
That was my closing, but I will read parts of that letter dated April 30th, 2015, and it was addressed to Chairman Cheryl Renaza, requesting that you be taken off the docket. And I will close with that because I want to read one or two paragraphs of that letter. Mr. Barnes,
Yes, sir.
do you have any comments, remarks, or observations at this time?
Well, you're a tough act to follow with this. Mr. Goday, in his time here, and it's just that he's been exceptional. Not only is he extremely respected throughout the offender population, but he's also extremely respected among the officers and the supervisors and all the employees here. So much so that in 25 years I've been doing this, is not often an offender is referred to as Mr. Goday, Mr. Dale, and that's how we refer to him, as Mr. Dale or Mr. Goday. It's just a level of respect because he has been no issue with us. He's done everything we've asked of him and more, and he's just so respected by everybody here that we give him that respect because of who he is. So other than that, we've had no issues at all out of him, none.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Goday, I'm gonna go back to the offense just for a second because I need to bring it out. And after you shot your wife, buried her, you built a clean house. Then 18 months later, you remarried with the same woman that you were having an affair with. Tell me the thinking on your part of doing that.
I was in love with her. And in my own crazy way of thinking, I guess I just tried to bury everything and put it behind me. But there was,
You said you loved your wife.
I did. I just,
So why did you remarry, especially with the two daughters?
I just tried to push everything from the past behind me and move forward. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made in my life, because Connie deserved more respect than that. And so did Donna. And there was no way that that marriage could have possibly have been a success, because I was still secretly trying to cope with what I had done in the past.
and you would go into the greenhouse and you would sort of talk to Connie. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the marriage lasted 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Now, I just need a simple yes or no. Because I'm trying to uncover all the facts, the positive and the negative. Because I want to be fair to both parties. There was some information that I received in my report that you had taken out an insurance policy prior to your wife's death. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Madam Chairman, if you could indulge me a few seconds more, I'd like to go paraphrase a couple of the letters because I think this is important to the case. The first letter is from Stacy Galladay, your youngest daughter. She opens the letter by saying that she was 11 years old when my dad went to prison. He's 39 years old now. That was in 21, so she's probably 40 years old now. And she closes by saying, I am in support of my daddy, Clemency. I know in my heart that my dad misses my mom. We all make mistakes in life. My dad was 35 years old when he came to prison. He's now 64 and a grandfather of 6 children. I am asking the board to please consider my father for clemency. Please help us to be a family again. That was from Stacy. Then we have a very eloquent letter from your granddaughter, Chloe Connie Weber. She's 18 years old and she just graduated from high school, and that was in 2021, so she's probably in college now. And she ended by saying, please help my grandfather to come home. I need him in my life, and so does my mom. Thank you for accepting this letter of support from my grandfather. The next letter is from Melissa Jode Gross. And she ends her letter by saying, I believe that we all make mistakes in life. And I also believe people can change. I've seen it over the years as a child visits her dad at Angola, and as an adult and a mother today. Please help us to become a family again. Thank you for granting this hearing for my dad. The last letter is from.
I would like to say I did not write that letter.
Okay. And you will be given a chance because it has your signature and it has your name on that letter. Okay. The last letter is from an 87-year-old young lady by the name of Mary Fort or Fourier. And Ms. Fort says that she's known the Gallaudet family in Dale for the last 45, 50 years. She is a former justice of peace in Graceland for 25 years. in our closing paragraph, she says, no amount of time will ever change the past. I just ask that you look at the boy I knew at 17, who is now 63, a father and a grandfather. Madam Chairman, I think it would be appropriate to allow Alyssa to make some comment at this time, because there is a letter pinned and signed with her name in the packet, and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Melissa, is there a comment you'd like to make on the record?
I would just like to say I don't know where it came from, but I did not write a letter.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you for clarifying that for us. Mrs. Jackson.
Good morning, Mr. Goday. My name is Bonnie Jackson, and I also have reviewed your packet. And I'll say it looks impressive. You've accomplished a lot of things, and you look good on the outside. But I'm not so much interested in the outside as I am what's genuinely true about you. And I will tell you that unlike Mr. Roche, I'm not sure that you're telling us the truth about what happened when you killed your wife. I'm not. There's information in the file that there was a red stain on the carpet in your home that you told your girlfriend, then wife, that it was Kool-Aid stain. And then you had the carpet taken up. In your account of what happened, you basically, as I hear it, you're blaming Connie for her own death because she's the one who got the gun. She's the one who was going to go and do harm to the woman that you were having an affair with. I don't believe that. I also know that when you were interviewed by the police about what happened, they did something called a psychological stress test. I'm not familiar with that, but based on their assessment, you had nothing to do with your wife's death. So even though you had killed her, you had buried her in the backyard, you were able to give the impression that you were telling the truth. I would have been a lot more impressed with you today had you not come up with this story that I don't believe is true. There's indication in the record that you had a violent temper. There's indication in the record that there have been past incidents of domestic violence directed toward your former wife, your deceased wife. And so when you come here and you paint this picture of all of a sudden this happened because she got the gun and it was just an emotional thing, to me that doesn't ring true, because you don't then calmly dig a grave in the backyard and bury your wife, if that is in fact what happened. And then what you do is you tell her family that she was the one involved in a sexual affair and she runs off with this man. You lead your children to believe that their mom abandoned them for another man. I don't know what you said to them when they cried for their mom, they missed their mom, but you led them to believe that their mom just picked up, left with another man, and walked out of their life. You wrote a letter, or you had a letter sent to someone purportedly written by Connie saying that she was okay and she had run off with this man. You did all of those things. And then, you've done a lot of stuff with Toastmasters, so you're very adept at communication and talking. But I'm going to tell you, for me, I'm having a real problem with the fact that even today, you're not telling the truth about what you did to Connie. You are not. And that troubles me greatly. So I'll give you the opportunity to respond to my concerns.
I'm sorry that you don't believe me, but you're right about one thing. She is not at fault for any of this. I am. It's my fault. I am the person who needs to take responsibility. Because of me, she is not here today. Because of me, she didn't get to watch her children and grandchildren grow up. As far as the stain on the carpet, that was Kool-Aid. I had 2 young children. But I will tell you this. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wish any of this would have not happened. Not because of my losing my freedom, but because of all of the pain and the hurt and the agony that I've caused these people.
Well, let me ask, talk about took victim awareness. How do you think it affected your children to leave them to believe that their mom would just pick up and leave?
Can
Yeah,
you
what I
repeat that?
said, you've taken victim awareness, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you think it affected your children for them to believe that their mom just picked up and abandoned them for some man? How do you think that impacted their lives to think their mom just left them?
I think that it altered their lives very much. And I'm ashamed to say that I did such a thing.
Why did you do that?
I guess in my own crazy way of thinking, I was thinking that I was trying to protect them from the truth. But in all reality, I just made things worse.
Perhaps you were trying to protect yourself from being caught.
You're probably right. I probably was.
And how do you think it affected her family to get this bogus letter purporting to be from her saying she just left? And how do you think that impacted them?
I'm sure that it must have really crushed them because they know their daughter. They know her personality. They know how she is. She was a good person. And she surely deserves someone better than me. I'm truly sorry for what I've done for that.
She goes 7 years knowing she was buried in the backyard. Just knowing that your children, were in the yard and your mom was buried back there. How did you feel about that? Okay.
It was very hard. It was very hard because I missed her. I missed her tremendously. And I couldn't change what had happened in the past. And I went down this dark road and just couldn't seem to find my way back. I didn't know how to tell the truth back then. I just kept suppressing it. And I look back now and can't even believe the person that I was. That was not in my nature. And saying I'm sorry.
Okay, I will tell you that there were a lot of very lengthy police reports with a lot of interviews with a lot of people, and lying and theft was part of your nature. That was the allegations made by people back then, that was who you are. This was not an isolated incident of bad judgment, bad behavior, untruthfulness. If you can't be honest with yourself, Mr. Goday, why would I believe that you're honest with us today?
Because I have nothing left to lose. Nothing.
You absolutely, You
This-
have lose this opportunity for release.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Lose, have something to lose. You can lose this opportunity for release.
And that's why I came forward today to say what I had to say. Because I couldn't bear to hold this anymore, and I felt that her family needed to know. But I'm telling you, I'm
And I think what you said today about their daughter, mom, sister made them feel better.
Connie was my first love. She was the mother of my children. And I lost sight of what was really important to me in life.
But you were having an affair.
I regret to this day that I started that affair. And if I could go back and change the past, I would do so in a heartbeat, even if it meant that that bullet would have taken my life instead. Because I really believe that Connie today would have been an amazing mother and grandmother. And I wish I would have appreciated her more then.
I thank you, Mr. Johnson. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. I don't see any other questions by my colleagues. So we'd like to hear from the people who are here in support. And first, we'd like to hear from the Parole Project, Mr. Pierre Meyer.
Good morning, Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. First, full disclosure, I would like to say that I know Dale Godet very well. I consider him a friend. I slept next to him for almost 6 years. So I want the board to know that in full disclosure. One thing that Dale has told you today that I don't think that has come up about what happened, it was that when he was arrested, he wanted to tell the truth. He got legal advice not to plead not guilty, to come up with a defense against his own better judgment. He allowed that to happen. That's what happens when you have no knowledge of the system and no experience with the system. He listened, he trusted his attorney. Dale, his remorse here is real. He understands completely what the loss that has happened to his daughters and to Connie's family. I want to say that Parole Project is committed, fully committed to support Dale with long-term support, long-term housing, allowing Dale to reestablish his life and to become independent again. 30 years, and we say this all the time, it's a long time. And Parole Project offers our full support for Dale. He will go through our programming. He obviously already functions at a very high level. He is employable. His own current employer has even made it known that he has possible employment with them should he be released. That's how much he's respected by his current employer. And we will be here to support Dale through that entire transition. So I would ask this board today to consider Dale today. Consider the things that he has done over the last 30 years, to consider his remorse, to consider that he is devastated by his own actions and may never get over it. And of course, that's a little consequence to Connie's family, to his daughters. But he has a chance. He has a chance to give back. He's been giving back for 30 years. And he has a chance to make a huge difference if he does get this opportunity. So we would ask the board to grant Dale his recommendation today.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the folks who are here with us. Can we hear from Jay Jackson?
Morning. My name is Jay Jackson, and most recently I served as a full-time Catholic chaplain in Angola from 2016 to 2020. And before that, I was an active volunteer with the Catholic ministry at Angola for 17 years. Now I am currently a amateur golfer. I met Dale approximately 20 years ago at Angola while serving as a volunteer chaplain. Since Dale's transferred to the state police barracks, I stayed in touch with Dale as he was instrumental in organizing the Catholic community, which included regular church services, where I continued to serve as a volunteer. It was very impressive to me that what Dale had accomplished since his incarceration, a single write-up in 30 years. And as a Catholic chaplain and being involved with the Catholic ministry up there and being involved with the men up there, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone go through that length of time without having a single write-up, particularly when they first get there. So I have to say that's quite amazing. As a trustee, Dale's involvement and accomplishments in a variety of clubs and his work performance, for a lack of a better word, is simply amazing. If the Department of Corrections were looking for a poster child, Dale would be the perfect candidate. Since the day he got into the system, Dale has chosen whatever means available to become a rehabilitating man. I think the information about Dale that was forwarded to each of you quite literally speaks volumes. Acknowledging and genuinely regretting the huge mistake he made earlier in his life. There's not a day that goes by that Dale does not feel the pain that he caused. Dale understands that this pain will never go away. But instead of going into a shell, Dale decided when he entered DLC to do whatever he could to fix what had left broken. One of Dale's greatest assets is his willingness and desire to serve other people. Hopefully, each of you have had the opportunity to read the many letters from people who have seen or experienced what Dale has done. If Dale is ever given the opportunity to return to the free world, I do not think that Dale would ever have to worry about one offering him a job. With his many talents and the person he has become, Dale will have many opportunities to find a job. And I appreciate y'all's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, Father Lane, I'd like to get from you.
Honorary. Reverend Charles Lane, excuse me, I'm Reverend Charles Lane, Catholic priest, presently assigned to St. Gabriel Catholic Church, right down the road in St. Gabriel. I met Dale approximately in July of 2002 at Louisiana State Penitentiary. As a Catholic chaplain assigned by Bishop Munch at that time, he became my clerk. He was very dedicated. I looked at Dale from many angles. His character traits were skilled, highly organized, all papers, etc., that were needed for the ministry there. He knew what to do, he did it, and I never had to worry about it being done. He told me to sign here, I signed. I trusted him. I signed. I brought it to the department heads and different people. I never had a bad report. I had complete confidence. During my years as Catholic chaplain, we began a program Dale mentioned earlier to ordain to appoint Catholic inmates to become Catholic inmate chaplain. Their duties were visit inmates in Alabama, visit inmates in hospitals and hospice program, conduct scripture and communion service, but I could not be at the facility. And Dale was first class. He did a great. He was the first group members to graduate. Dale has a strong Catholic Christian community, commitment to faith, and is committed and devoted to the service of the Lord. Dale knew what he did. Dale was sorry for what he's done. And that my business, reconciliation and forgiveness from some standard. As I'm sure that you are aware, Dale is presently at the barracks. When he arrived there, he contacted a group of us, wanted to start Catholic services. He recruited us, he responded accordingly and continuously calls us, sir. That's up on acceptance on this. And a number of years ago, I told Bill that if he ever got parole, I would like to offer him a position in my parish. I'm at a time now and I can't do that. My career is coming to an end at 73. But I would certainly recommend Dale to any Catholic pastor in our diocese of that. Dale's a good friend, to whom I have ultimate trust. I can ask you to offer. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
All right, thank you all. You'll hear from the opposition now. You hear from Ms. Poirier. Gwen?
Yes,
Go ahead, ma'am. You'd like to speak this morning?
yes. It's difficult, for me to hear everybody say that he's been in jail 30 years and he's been a model prisoner. It's been 38 years since we've seen my sister. 38. 8 of those years, we didn't even know where she was. Just imagine the things she would have accomplished in her life had he not taken it away. There's no doubt in my mind, she'd have been the best grandmother out there, way better than anybody I could ever picture, because she loved her daughters. I can't imagine how much she would have loved her grandchildren. And the story that Dale just portrayed to y'all, that she pulled the gun and threatened to go and hurt Donna, is ludicrous. Anybody that knows my sister knew her. There is no way in hell that she would have done something like that. He point blank killed her so that he can continue his life with Donna. Make no mistake, that is what happened. So since she cannot enjoy life and enjoy her children and grandchildren, he does not deserve it either. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your remarks. Julie? Thank you, Julie.
I'm Julia Bills. I grew up next door neighbors with Connie. I'm not her sister, but we were sisters. Tell you about Connie. Her dreams were to have a husband who loved her, and she thought she had that in Dale. And all she wanted was children. Melissa and Stacy were the love of her life. There is no way she ever would have left. I knew Dale through the life. Dale comes from a good family, nothing at all against his parents, his brother. Something made him take a different path. We lived the lies of the letter coming in, the lies of a friend who worked for him calling her parents to say they saw her. How hurtful could that be? You know, Dale sentenced Connie 38 years ago. He sentenced her to death. Dale was sentenced by a jury of his peers to life in prison. That's where he needs to stay. Maybe he has changed in a controlled environment. But when his environment was not controlled, it was about lies. 1 year to the day after Connie was missing, he sought a divorce. And I went and met with the state-appointed attorney to give Connie's side of the story because he took Connie's voice away. So again, I ask you, please, let justice be served. If Connie could walk out these doors and be the first person to hug Melissa and Stacy, then I would say consider giving Dale an opportunity. But no, I feel like justice is where Dale needs to stay. If he's good where he's at, then let him be there. Thank you.
All right, we have from the DA's office.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have you on the list. Go ahead. We'll get from you. 1984, Tom supposedly left with a boyfriend. That was Dale's story. But let's go back 2 weeks before that happened. When her soon-to-be 2-year-old daughter was in a hospital with pneumonia. Tommy never left her side. Not even when our own mother went to the hospital, asked her to go home and take a shower. She refused to leave that baby. It was Sunday morning, February 19th, when my mom got the call from Bill that Tommy left. 2 weeks after her baby was in the hospital, she left with the boyfriend. And besides that, she was starting from her part-time job to go full-time. On that Monday, she was supposed to start full-time job. On Monday morning, I went to the grocery store to make sure she didn't show up. Of course, she didn't show up. Bill was there. They went to the grocery store to see if she would show up, and she didn't. Monday afternoon, my mom and I were at the sheriff's office because we knew Tommy would never, ever have left those children. So we knew something bad had happened. For 8 years, Tommy's family lived without knowing what happened to her. And Dale lived his life like nothing happened. He remarried and divorced. All the while telling their daughters that she abandoned them. During those 7 years, my mom would bring Tommy's daughters to counseling. Eventually, the counselor told her they were okay, but this life-altering tragedy could come back when they grow up. Well, it's happening now. They're realizing what actually happened. The Connie's daughters' lives have changed forever, and they don't get a do-over. Connie doesn't get a do-over. Our family doesn't get a do-over. So why does the person that caused this tragedy get a do-over? And it wasn't an accident. Thank you. Ms. Richard? Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jennifer Richard. I'm the first assistant attorney in LaFouche Parish. I often write letters to the board when cases come up on parole or clemency or pardon to state our office's position on those cases. I rarely appear in person. However, for this case, I felt that an appearance from our office was imperative to express to the board how strongly we are against any type of pardon, commutation, or early release for Mr. Gode. I would like to focus on 3 points, and that is the trial of this matter, the community, and of course, the victims in this case. I, like you, Ms. Bonnie, do not believe the story that was heard today, and neither did the jury in this case. Mr. Gode was represented by an excellent attorney in Mr. Alcock. And today he said 2 things. One is that Ms. Connie started this incident with the gun. And the second is that he was given bad advice by his attorney, though he did not say that. That was put out on his behalf. That he wanted to tell the truth, but was advised against doing so. Mr. Alcock is deceased, as is Ms. Connie, and can't refute whether or not that is in fact what happened. The trial of this matter, defenses were put forth, all of the evidence was heard, and the jury had an opportunity to return a verdict of manslaughter. They believed the version of events that was told today. It would fit that. They did not. They returned the verdict of second-degree murder, and the judge handed down the life sentence, and we would ask that that sentence be carried out. Secondly is the community of LaFouche Parish, and especially the community of Matthews, Louisiana. I personally am from Matthews, Louisiana, and was in high school when Miss Connie's remains were uncovered. That has stuck with me through the years, as it has stuck with the community that I live in. Nobody has forgotten this. That is a very small community with a close-knit group of people that stand up for each other, that look out for each other. And the fact that something like this happened was shocking then, and it is shocking today. People have not forgotten it. And it's just something that was unbelievable and still is today, that somebody could be buried in their own yard and left there for 8 years with a story that is just unbelievable. I understand that there are people here in support of Mr. Godey, but they are not from our community and cannot possibly understand the impact that this had on that community. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the victims in this case and Miss Connie and Miss Connie's children. For years, she was missing. Her children, who were very, very young at the time, one said she was 11 at the time that he was found guilty. She was 3 at the time that her mother disappeared. They grew up without a mother, without that guidance in their life. And I wonder today, how would their life be different had that not happened? While I hear from Mr. Godey about the fact that he's able to continue his legacy of carpentry, he's been able to practice his faith, he's been able to establish a library, the thought that goes through my head is, what would Ms. Connie have been able to establish? What good could she have done in her own community and with her grandchildren and her children? But we won't know that. And I also think about him expressing his faith. And then as a Catholic, I also think about the fact that she was buried for 8 years without having that kind of burial and faith-filled leaving of the earth that we as Catholics would hope to have. I think that while he may have done good things while he's been incarcerated and is low risk, he may have been considered low risk at the time that he committed the same crime. I don't believe he's low risk, and I would ask that his request be denied. Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we'd like, Dale, is there a statement you would like to make and address your remarks to the board, please?
First off, I'd like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I want you to know that it's taken me a long time, and they're absolutely right. It's a horrible thing. When I think about what I've done, I'm ashamed, and I still can't believe that it actually happened like that. I wish that I could, today, a 64-year-old man could go back and tell that 20-year-old version of me that everything that I ever wanted in life, I already had it. I just lost sight of it. I take full and complete responsibility for this. It's not on Connie. Connie was a good person. And I have to live with the fact that each and every day, she's not here to watch her children and grandchildren grow up. But I want you to know that over all these years, I have a small picture, family picture of Connie and I and our 2 young children. And it sits by my bunk. Those faces are the last faces that I see at night, and the first faces that I see in the morning. And they serve as a constant reminder of what my actions have cost. I'm truly sorry for all the heartache and the pain and the suffering that I've caused everyone. I can't change the past. That's why when I got to Angola, I tried to do everything in my power to make myself a better person, a better father, a better grandfather. I ask for your prayers for Connie's family and for my daughters. Once again, I thank you for this opportunity to come before you today.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cole.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Godey is a perfect example of how well the prison system can work. He came to prison almost 30 years ago and at an all-time low. He had lost himself, lost all of his confidence, and most importantly, he lost the one person that he loved the most due to his own selfish actions. He admits that he lost sight of what was important to him. But since the day that he's come to prison, he's worked relentlessly to become the best version of himself. And he takes full and complete responsibility for his actions, and he set out to right his wrongs. He has dedicated more than 23 years to Toastmasters, where he has assisted in chartering 3 chapters. He's facilitated dozens of programs. He's held multiple offices, and he received countless awards for his services. Along with his Toastmasters term, he has spent a lot of time giving back. He's participated in fundraisers. He's helped establish the library at the barracks, and he did a lot of community outreach with the Catholic community he serves. Mr. Gode has a perfect institutional record. He does not have a criminal past at all. Remarkably and quite noteworthily, he has never even received a single write-up since he's been in prison. His 15-year placement at the State Police Barracks further demonstrates the level of trust and respect that the institution places on him. And since his placement at the barracks, Mr. Gode has been employed with DPS as a part-time clerk. His work ethic has gained him recognition, and he's even been fortunate enough to be offered a permanent position with DPS should he have that opportunity for release. This not only proves his level of professionalism, responsibility, trustworthiness, but it also proves that he is an asset to DPS. Additionally, he has an excellent reentry plan with the Parole Project, who is prepared to help him transition successfully into society. And I'd like to note that Mr. Gode understands the hurt that he has placed on the Lockport community and respectfully does not plan to return. But most importantly, Mr. Gode has spent nearly 3 decades remorseful for his actions, and that remorse is real. This is the first time that Mr. Gode has had an opportunity to tell his story, and he was honest. And to this day, he is still heartbroken by his own actions. Although he cannot take back what he's done, he has done everything he can to be more positive, productive, and inspirational as an attempt to atone for his wife's death. And I understand that this horrible crime has placed a strain on his family, and his daughters have been innocently caught in the middle. But Mr. Gode has been trying to mend his relationship with his daughters and has been doing everything he can to support them and his grandchildren. He even withdrew a prior clemency application out of respect for his wife's family and his children. But today, he comes before you seeking an opportunity to prove that he is a better man. As you heard him say, because he took a life and because a life was lost, he hoped that he could also be the reason that a life was saved. And Mr. Gode has been doing everything and in so many capacities for the last 3 decades to give back and to give life. And so he asks right now that today he is a leader, a mentor, more mature, and more wiser. And he asks that you consider his transformation, his accomplishments, and see him for the man that he is today and grant his request for clemency. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the board prepared to vote?
Mr. Nelson, may I ask Ms. Coleman a question, please? Sure. Ms. Coleman,
Yes, sir.
the letter from Melissa Gode Gross is in my packet, is also in your packet.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me the source of that letter?
I do not know the exact source of the letter. I have gotten over 100 letters in my packet. I'm not really sure where they came from, but it is signed apparently by Miss Melissa.
Yes, thank you so much, Billy. I just need to know if you knew the source. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to call for the executive session to discuss confidential matters.
Motion for executive session. Have a second. Can we do the roll call, please?
Ms. Jackson,
Yeah.
Ms. Rachel,
Yes.
Ms. Bernard,
Yes.
Mr. Mirabella,
Yes.
and Mr. Green.
Yes.
So we'll be in executive session for a few moments to discuss confidential matters. We'll return shortly.
I'm gonna save my comments for the end, but we have the court records, which contains a lot of information that will dive even deeper. We're gonna fast forward because it's about a 4-minute wait, and we'll get back into the voting. Well, what do you think? What do you think they're gonna do? 4 minutes later.
All right, we are back in regular session. And the board is prepared to vote. We'll be starting with Mr. Rocha.
Mr. Gallaudet, you have done tremendous things in volunteer work and just done marvelous during the 29 and a half years of incarceration. And I had predicated my decision before the interview on all of your outstanding work while incarcerated. Give me 1 second, Ms. Garner, to get to my report. I predicated that decision on very outstanding work with the JCs for 23 years, outstanding programming, 100 hours pre-release, anger management, victim awareness, your publications and works with chicken, I think it's called Chicken Soup for prisoners. You've done a couple of articles. You've just, from the very beginning, done a tremendous job in dealing with your incarceration. You had outstanding remarks by State Police Barracks. You had outstanding work evaluation for the last 25, 30 years. And a whole bunch of other things, Mr. Gallaudet, and I won't mention. But I predicated my final decision on the support that you receive from your immediate family members, your daughters and your granddaughters. And I find out during the hearing that your daughter Melissa did not pen that letter of support that you received, that we received in your favor. And that disturbs me. That a letter from a daughter supporting her father could be entered into the record without her knowing. And she's not in support of your clemency. And I predicated my decision based on that, because I was looking at the insurance policy, I was looking at the remarriage, I was looking at you telling your coworkers at Rouse's to call the family, says I've seen this person here, there, and the other place. The letter that the family received, I was overlooking all of that because you had the support of your daughter, which you don't have. You have adamant opposition from the bench in the 17th JDC. You have adamant opposition from the district attorney's office in LaFouche Parish. I am the victim's advocate. And this is why when the immediate family says, Alvin Roche, I'm in favor of my daddy's clemency, I predicated my formal decision on that. But based upon opposition from your immediate family, opposition from the judge in the 17 JDC, opposition from the DA's office, and law enforcement opposition, I'm going to deny your request this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgway. Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, Mr. Goday, as a member of this board, I have always taken into account the facts of the crime, and I always take into account the opposition and the effects that the crime has had on the victims. Those are factors that I always consider. I don't always give the same weight to all of those things because all crimes are horrible. All murders are horrible. There's no question of that. What bothers me the most about this case, Mr. Goday, is what you did after the crime and what you perpetrated and what you did to your daughters. They were young, maybe they didn't really understand at the time what was going on. But there certainly were family and friends and that were hurt by your lies. That has a big effect on you. And as I look at that, my responsibility is also to determine who you are today. Have you put that behind you? It's been suggested that you haven't been very truthful to us today. I'm not sure you have. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. It makes better sense that you probably just killed you. I don't know. I don't know if you're being honest with us. I don't know if you're manipulating us or not. What I have to go on also is empirical facts. What you've done while you have been a model person. You have no write-up, which is almost unheard of in almost 30 years, the time you've been in prison. Your record is impeccable. You're a very trusted person. You have many, many people here testifying on your behalf. Of course, you've got many, many people opposing you. Lieutenant Burns has said some very wonderful things about you. You've done a lot of things. You've helped a lot of people while you've been in prison. As I balance all of those things, trying to put my responsibility in what my job is supposed to be, I can't see where you can do any more from a program perspective, from a behavioral perspective. While you've been in prison, you've been a model prisoner. As tough a decision as it is, my vote today would be to grant or request for pardon and recommend to the governor that you reduce your sentence to 99 years. With parole eligibility, you've served 30 years after 33 years. I would expect you to serve a little more time. That would give everybody a little bit of time to be able to understand that it's likely you're going to be getting out before. That would be my vote today.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. Mr. Freeman.
It is. I mean, this was a very confusing case. We went back and forth. My mind went back and forth. There's no doubt you've been a model prisoner. There's no doubt that, you've done everything you can while you've been in. But then when I look at the effects it's had on the family, and I look at the law enforcement and community opposition, I just don't think it's your time yet. I don't think 29 years is quite enough. So my vote today would be.
Mr. Freeman, Jackson.
Mr. Goday, as I started at the beginning, you've done a lot of good things, and your resume was very impressive. It really does, and I do commend you for the things that you've done. But as I also said, I'm not as impressed by programs or anything unless they speak to who you are now, who you have become. And I'm going to be honest with you. I found your lack of candor very troubling because as a person who purports to be of deep faith, truth should be paramount in everything that you do. And I don't think you chose to be truthful with us today. You have done some good things in prison, but I'll remind you that the Apostle Paul did some of his best work from prison. But for me, your lack of candor, the strong opposition across the legal community, the judge, the DA, law enforcement, the small community where this crime occurred, but more importantly, just the tremendous harm your actions have caused to your own children, not just the fact that you took their mother blind, because we've had people done that before, and there has been genuine reconciliation. But as Mr. Marabella said, for you to go 8 years letting those children who live with their mom and packed up and left them, it's just unforgivable, unthinkable, the harm that you caused to them. And so today, because of the lack of candor, because of the strong opposition, my vote today would be to deny. All right, Gail, gotten 3 unfavorable votes, 1 that was favorable, so you know what the outcome of today's proceeding is. Based on that, today your application for clemency has been denied.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I think, does that conclude our business at the barracks today? All right, so we'll adjourn from there. It's 10:37.
Sorry, Miss Jackson, another mic drop. I don't appreciate your candor. You know, when you think you've seen it all, you get hit with it. Something new. He actually has a letter from his daughter who opposes his release. Forged. And I don't think he expected Mr. O'Shea, who is so thorough, to have gone through this massive packet, bigger than maybe any we've seen, pick out that letter and mention it. He didn't take that into account. Mr. O'Shea, the librarian, I thought that because Dale opened the library and the way that Mr. O'Shea started, things were just, I was like, it felt like he was being granted already. And he might have, I think, from what Mr. O'Shea said. But he didn't count, in my opinion, on Mr. O'Shea's thoroughness and then the likelihood that that letter would be mentioned. Because remember, if it's not mentioned, we might not even have known. And he forged his wife. He forged letters from her. This wasn't the first time that he's forged letters. That's where it comes. It's like, what's the saying? The leopard doesn't change its spots. I don't know how Mr. Marabella could overlook that. Is he thinking, well, maybe someone else forged the letter and he didn't know about it? How do you grant? I'm just blown away by how you can just overlook that. we're going to go over the transcript. And it says, you know, they have, and let me thank Claire for bringing this up again. She's has a knack for bringing up some really mind-blowing cases. And she said I should check this out. And I actually remember watching it. I don't think I recorded it though. If you've seen it before, then, but this, there's if you Google it, there are actually there's a true crime episode on it. Because the story is just hard to believe. But you know, this guy, he's a monster. And you know, they're all gushing over his 0 write-ups in 30-something years. And I also, you know, we've seen it a few times, and it is really impressive and actually hard to believe. But on second thought, when I think about that, I'm like, I'm scared by it. I mean, you have to be some type of lizard humanoid to go that long without a single write-up. I mean, how is it possible that a guard doesn't wake up on the wrong day of the bed, on the wrong side of the bed, and just give you a write-up over 30-something years? There's like, I don't know why I can't eliminate this. Maybe I can do it like this. It's like, why do I have to look at this whole left side? That is not relevant. But okay, I guess we have to stare at that. February 18th, 1984. The victim mysteriously disappeared. She had been married to the defendant since September 1978. We're talking 6 years. Had 2 young daughters, ages 4 and 1, on the day of her disappearance. The victim worked until 6:30 p.m., picked up her 2 daughters from grandmother's house, returned to the house she shared with the defendant, and the youngest daughter's second birthday was approximately 1 week away. Can you imagine? Little did she know she wouldn't get to see her daughter's second birthday. The defendant claimed, the victim was just 23 years of age at the time of her disappearance. It's just a baby. 23. She's been married since 18. 17, I guess. Defendant claimed that the night of the victim's disappearance, he went to bed at approximately 9 p.m. Defendant claimed that he last saw the victim at around midnight. Further, the defendant claimed that he was awakened the following morning by a telephone call from the victim, who stated that she had left with a friend. Defendant claimed that he received the call approximately 7 a.m. Let's see if you can see this. I know some of you asked to read it yourself, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I read your comments. So let's see if I can add the mic on set. I hope it didn't affect anything. Now, Ethel, the victim's mother, received a letter, purportedly, here's a letter I was talking about, written by the victim a few days later. The letter disclosed that the victim left the defendant and her 2 daughters for another man named Ted. Yeah, see the irony in that, how he's so into TED Talks. Okay. Furthermore, although the letter indicated that the victim abandoned her family to see the world and to obtain a new beginning, she promised to return home one day. Moreover, the letter was replete with patronage towards the defendant, stating how how hard he tried to get a good husband and to be a good husband and father. You can't make this stuff up. You think it's just like like the audacity he has to write this letter, and then he can't help himself. His narcissism is so strong, he can't help it but to flatter himself in the letter how great he is. Strangely, although the letter indicated that the victim was writing on the run, apparently meaning that she was on her way to Ted's hometown, the envelope revealed that it was postmarked in Lockport, Louisiana, which is not somewhere on the run. Forensic examination established that the letter, which was incorrectly addressed, was not written by the victim. So right away, they realized something was up. The defendant told various persons that he received several telephone calls from the victim after her disappearance. Further, the defendant told one person that he visited the victim on one occasion following her disappearance. He even said he visited. The defendant told one person that he visited the victim. However, aside from the defendant, no one claimed to see or hear from the victim after she mysteriously vanished to go see the world, to go be with Ted. Out of suspicion and good for the family, they contacted the sheriff's office after she disappeared. Thereafter, the police questioned the defendant about his wife's disappearance. During the course of the investigation, the defendant gave recorded statements to the police in February of 1984 and December of 1987. However, some of the defendant's 1987 statements do not appear to be in harmony with his initial account of the events that transpired around the time of the victim's disappearance. Well, some time passed. I guess he's heard. Oh, right. That was another thing he said. It was Kool-Aid. Okay, bro. Yeah, I'm sure there was Kool-Aid on the carpet. There was Kool-Aid. That's why instead of just shampooing it, you replaced the whole carpet. Wow, what a I forgot about that part. God, how anyone, and the scary thought is that if he didn't mess up with that letter, he probably would have gotten commuted. I don't know if Miss Jackson would have done it, but just think about that. For example, on February 21st, 1984, defendant initially told the police that he was sleeping at the time he received the alleged telephone call from the victim, informing him that she had abandoned him and their two girls. However, on December 8th, 1987, the defendant stated something different. He stated on the morning following the victim's disappearance, he was in the process of preparing his daughter's breakfast. Of course he was. You know, he's the hero dad. He's making breakfast. When he received this call, I'm surprised he didn't say that he was cleaning the house, doing breakfast, working a fourth job, maybe saving the world somewhere next to Superman. But so additionally, on February 21st, 1984, the defendant told the police that the victim departed with two suitcases containing her dress clothes. Yet on December 8th, 1987, the defendant told the police that the victim left with half of her clothing. He can't remember his own lies, but good on the police keeping good notes and remembering that. When questioned about any reason the victim might have had to abandon her two children, the defendant told the police the pressure from the kids was just starting to get to her. Furthermore, the defendant admitted to the police that he was having a relationship with another woman, Donna, and at the time of the victim's disappearance. The police told the defendant that the circumstances surrounding the victim's disappearance suggested foul play. The police informed the defendant that he would be their prime suspect if they had evidence of foul play. Defendant denied offing his wife. Following her disappearance, the defendant filed for a divorce from the victim. Shocker. Defendant obtained the divorce. Subsequently, in June 1985, defendant married Donna. 1985, he married her. That's right. They said like 18 months after she disappeared. This guy is just just, you know, we'll get into Carrie Myers soon, because that just, any respect that I had for Carrie Myers just evaporated with his testimony on behalf of this monster. I think we got a lot of insight into who Carrie really is. In February 1991, the defendant sold the residence he shared with, okay, so he gets married, and they were only married into 1988. During her marriage, the defendant lived in the same house he shared with the victim. So the marriage didn't last that long. What a shock. And then in February 1991, he sold his house, and that's where he made his mistake. The purchaser of the house, simultaneously, the defendant purchased Toop's residence from her in 1991 after inheriting another residence from a relative. Toop sold the house she had bought from the defendant to Jerry Monica. So there's basically, the house is sold and it's sold to someone else. And the Knight financed the purchase of the defendant's former house. And this poor family, the Knights, just thinking they're buying a house. Little did they know it, they're going to end up on a appeals court document one day, and with the body in their backyard. However, the Knights' mortgage was conditioned. The mortgage they obtained had a condition, and the condition is that they had to replace the sewer system. So the Knights contacted the defendant and asked him for information on drain fields. The defendant met with the Knights and the sewer contractor to determine the best location for the play system. This is actually pretty incredible. The defendant, it wasn't like he just sold the house and then they dug it up, but he would have gotten this phone call about it and then started freaking out like, oh no, what am I going to do? Which is great, because I love the idea of thinking of him squirm. At the time the defendant met with the Knights, a small cement slab, the remnants of a greenhouse that had been torn down, was adjacent to the fence. Defendant suggested that the excavation be as close to the fence as possible. Furthermore, the defendant advised the Knight to avoid an area around the slab because of tree stumps. Defendant left the Knights believing that they would follow his advice. Ultimately, the Knights and the contractor decided to place the system in a location different from the one suggested by the defendant. On November 6, 1991, work was begun on the installation of the system. The work was completed a few days later. During the installation process, the slab was broken up by heavy machinery. This is how he was caught. Because of a condition on a mortgage loan. It's incredible. On Sunday, November 10th, 1991, Jerry Knight decided to clean the yard following the installation project. While cleaning, he discovered what appeared to be part of a human jawbone lying on the soil surface. The Knight brought the bone to the family physician. The physician concluded that the bone was of human origin, but deferred to the pathologist for final confirmation. After further examination established the sample was from a human skeleton. Indeed, it was human. The police were called. They excavated the yard. A substantial portion of a skeleton wrapped in a mattress cover was exhumed. Dental records established the remains from the yard were those of 23-year-old mother. He was charged and arrested. He was indicted by the grand jury for the red room of his wife. He was tried by a jury which convicted him. The trial court imposed mandatory penalty of life imprisonment, hard labor, which apparently is working at the police barracks, without benefit of probation, parole, suspension of sentence. Defendant appeals using 27 assignments of error. However, the defendant specifically abandoned assignments of error number 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 12, 18, 19, 20, and 22. Remaining of error were briefed in the defendant's 6-page arguments. So he goes through this, and I don't think we're going to go through his different assignments of error, but it's obviously a pathetic attempt. Well, there's some interest. The defendant testified that he and the victim had been having marital difficulties for several months prior to their disappearance. Defendant admitted that he was involved in an affair with Ferret during his marriage. Ferret testified that she and the defendant discussed the possibility of marriage prior to the victim's disappearance. Also, Ferret testified that the defendant claimed the victim left town with $20,000 the week before she disappeared. However, the defendant claimed that he did not discuss marriage. So he's saying, no, this was hearsay. It's not true. Well, his ex-wife testified against him, which is great. Defendant testified on his own behalf. So he took the stand, either admitted to or specifically denied that he had made certain statements. I mean, just after here, this is defendant and Fort were married June 1985, November 1988. As trial force testified about 3 separate incidents where she overheard the defendant apparently speaking to the victim when he was unaware that she could hear him. The first occasion was before their marriage. Foret testified that she was in the defendant's bedroom seated at his desk when the defendant emerged from the shower. As he looked in the mirror, wiping his face with a towel, defendant stated, "Connie, I'm so sorry I did what I did. I miss you. The kids miss you." Defendant then noticed that Fort was in the room. She and the defendant argued over their remarks. Further, Fort wanted to leave. However, the defendant ordered her to stay and not let anyone know she was upset by what he had heard. Fort, as he instructed. So this was before cell phones. There's no cell phone in their bathroom. So she heard him saying something which, yeah, that would have upset her for many reasons. That's pretty scary. After the couple was married, Fred overheard the defendant apparently speaking to the victim one morning as he was getting ready for work. She heard him call the victim's name. Then she heard him compliment the victim on the meal she had prepared the preceding evening. This is really disturbing stuff. You get he's in his own head talking to her. And how well she'd done with the children because they were learning to behave better and they had just become a whole loving family. Apparently, defendant was attributing Ford's actions to the victim. Ford became upset and questioned him about the comments. However, the defendant denied making the statements, telling her that she was hearing things. And the third statement overheard by Ford occurred when she sustained an illness, precluding sexual intercourse for several weeks. On the night she and the defendant resumed relations, Ford overheard the defendant in the bathroom addressing the victim and telling her how well the children were doing and how pleased he was with their conduct. This is giving me chills. Then the defendant stated, "Connie, you are the best lover tonight that you ever have been." Fred testified that she confronted the defendant about the statements when he came out of the bathroom. However, the defendant denied making the statements, telling her that she was dreaming. You know, it is creepy, and what we just read, and basically he's kind of like in his own it's like a terrifying movie. Imagine you're married to him and you hear him talking And I guess it gives us some insight that he really did, in some ways, regret what he did. So I guess part of people's psychopathy can be true, if that's the takeaway from this. But I don't feel any remorse for him. We find out on this hearing that, and he starts by lying. He says that she goes to take the weapon, which I didn't believe either for a second, and then it somehow goes off, which we know these weapons, they go off. But again, we have to the class action lawsuit on behalf of all red rummers with these weapons that shoot by themselves. He buries her in the backyard. He tells, like what Miss Jackson said, who knows what to the children. They're claiming that she left for another man. They have to believe that through their birthdays, through Christmas, he brings another woman into their lives just like a little more than a year later. He keeps this lie going. Meanwhile, like Miss Jackson alluded to, they're in the backyard. The kids are playing, the barbecues. Every time you step back there, she's in the ground. And he gets up at his hearing and he just makes up this ridiculous lie. And with all of this evidence in front of your face, you have Carrie Myers that gets up and says, I've been we were, his roommate for 6 years. And the poor guy, against his own judgment, he didn't tell the truth. He wanted to tell the truth. His attorney said not to. And that is the biggest load of bull. Like, really, I struggled with Kerry. I thought, he had served time in prison for offing his wife. He gets out. He creates this parole program, project program, which really is a money scheme, in my opinion. I mean, there's like hundreds of millions of dollars being diverted from the prison system to now these parole project type systems. But still, I thought it was a good thing to do. But then the more you see it, it's like, how can you say that against his own judgment? We're not dumb. Are you insulting the entire board's intelligence? He literally just went 6 years or 7 with his wife buried and underneath his yard. He was only caught because they had to dig up the yard so they can get the loan. At the hearing, it's found out before, Kerry, you make that statement that he forged a letter from his daughter. It was against his own judgment. He bought life insurance shortly before he killed her. This was premeditated. And he still comes in and he says it was an accident. And then they bring up, well, what about the life insurance? I mean, come on. There's no mention of it on the appeal. Like, I don't know. It wasn't mentioned in court. Maybe the judge didn't allow it. But he bought life insurance. Oh, you might argue she was working. She's 23 years old. You should have life insurance, but I don't find it a coincidence. It wasn't he didn't buy it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He bought it immediately. It seemed like immediately before. I like what Miss Jackson said. I'm not impressed by all your programs, by all your accomplishments. You know what was, this was in he said, he said, what I think it was Mr. O'Shea asked him a question. He asked him a question why he did something, and his response was, I tried to bury everything and put it behind me. And he didn't even realize the whole irony in that. You buried your wife to put it behind you, and you would say those words at your commutation hearing. I tried to bury everything and put it behind me. It's like, dude. And when they bring up the letter and the daughter comes and says, I didn't write that letter. Oh my gosh, he probably felt the same way when the homeowner called and said, we need to dig up your backyard. He probably had the same flashback. He shriveled up in a little ball. And when Miss Jackson spoke to him, his response was, when she said, I don't believe you. I'm sorry that you don't believe me, but you are right. It's my fault that she's taken from her mother. But the carpet was a Kool-Aid stain. Okay, cockroach. You haven't drinking the Kool-Aid. We're not, like, you think we're all dumb. It's like the sign of a serious narcissist. I was trying to protect my children. And Miss Jackson's like, how about you were trying to protect yourself? Trying to protect your children. Finally, his attorney speaks. And it's like, she does her scripted little speech, like not kind of taking into account or like running an audible after hearing this entire crazy hearing. And then something that stuck out to me, because I don't think I've ever heard an attorney with a grammar mistake. And I don't have a great grammar. I'm dyslexic. I'm not, but if you're an attorney and in your final speech, you say that he is more wiser, that's kind of a first for me. And I checked with ChatGPT. It says, yes, more wiser is not grammatically correct. You would say more wise or wiser, but not more wiser. That was in her speech. She said he's gotten more wiser. I'm glad he was denied. We're dealing with a lizard humanoid cockroach here, and the idea that he shows up to his hearing and forges his daughter's letter and really doesn't take accountability and just twists the words and almost got away with it. Just like he almost got away with taking his wife's life. But today, justice sees its way through. But we've been together for about 2 hours. That's for one hearing. That's pretty long. So I do thank you for spending the time. I think it's important that we see this. Thank you again, Claire. It is a gift that we are able to see the behind workings of the justice system. And in this case, seeing justice, in my opinion, play out. But if you have a different opinion, please do share it. But it's important that we are not an echo chamber in the comment section. And with that, I'll let you go.